Hey guys, welcome to another video in our question and answer series. And today we're going to be looking at the question that was submitted by someone in our class. Is the coronavirus a sign of the end times? Is the coronavirus a sign of the end times? So I've definitely heard this question a lot asked lately, and there's been a lot of scholars and theologians have weighed in on this as well, like David Jeremiah and John Piper. So you can definitely look at their responses as well. And so this kind of question, it's not really a yes or no question. Is this a sign or is it not a sign? We have to look at what the Bible says, and there's a lot of different passages that we could look at that talks about things that are going to happen towards the end that we can prepare for. And I want to read one of those. We don't have time to get into all of them because this is going to be a short video, but let me go and read, one of them. This is the Olivet Discourse. You're very familiar with it. This is Jesus speaking to his disciples during Passion Week. It's kind of one of his last talks with the disciples, and he's getting them ready so that they'll know what the end is going to look like. That's one of their questions. What's the end going to look like? Kind of like the question that we're addressing in this video. They wanted to know what the end was going to look like, and we do too. And so let's see what Jesus responds to the disciples. So in Matthew 24, this is part of the Olivet Discourse, and we get to verse 4. And Jesus answered and said unto them, See to it that no one misleads you, for many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and will mislead many. You will be hearing of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not frightened, for those things must take place, but that is not yet the end. So Jesus is already saying, look, you're going to hear about wars, you're going to hear about rumors of wars, you're going to hear about a bunch of stuff going on in a worldwide arena, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the end is yet. He continues on, saying, For nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom in various places, and there will be famines and earthquakes, but all these things are merely the beginning of birth pangs. And so Jesus is kind of laying it out in the Olivet Discourse. He's kind of saying, look, you're going to see a lot of stuff. And it's going to be crazy stuff. It's going to be stuff that's going on worldwide. You're going to have wars. You're going to have not even real wars. You're going to have people trying to start wars, these rumors of wars going on, and famines and pestilences and plagues and diseases. And you're going to have all of this type of turmoil going on in the entire world. Everyone's going to be affected. Everyone's going to suffer through it. It's going to be all these things that are going to be happening. But even these things doesn't necessarily mean that the end is right now. It just means that they're birth pangs. It means that these are events that are getting the world ready for the end. The world is essentially preparing itself. It's psyching itself up for the end times when Jesus Christ is going to return and bring judgment to the earth. And so if you look at the birth pangs, you look at a woman who is pregnant, and there's a lot of things that happens to a woman's body throughout the pregnancy. And there's many different things that happens in her body towards the end of the pregnancy. But just because there are, for example, if the woman has contractions and she's only 7 months pregnant, that doesn't mean that the baby's about to come immediately. It's just one of those things that happens with the baby's in a woman's body during pregnancy, that contractions may happen early. And it's just telling the woman that, hey, the body is preparing itself for a baby to be born. It's getting ready. It's doing everything necessary so that baby can be born. And so that's kind of what these birth pangs are on the earth. All of these wars and famines and pestilences, and earthquakes, and all of these things are the earth getting ready for the end. So is the coronavirus, is it part of those birth pangs? I would say yes. I would say this is just another example of the earth getting ready for the end times. Now, it's not the first virus we've had. It's not the first pandemic we've had. We've had the Black Plague. We've had the Spanish flu in 1918. We've had the SARS and MERS and the Ebola and the HIV outbreaks. We've had all of those. And so the coronavirus is not anything new. We've definitely had pandemics before. But what I would be most concerned about is not so much the virus as being a sign. It's more like the reaction to the virus. We've seen in the last few months what the world does when abnormal things happen, and it's kind of crazy, especially on the government level. And so we see in the United States, for example, something like a pandemic, something like a virus, which we've had many times in the past. This one just looks a little bit worse than some of them. But the government reacted very strongly. One day things were good, and then the next thing the government said, you can't leave your house. You can't go shopping. You can't go inside restaurants. You can't go to church. You can't do this. And the government essentially said, when things are crazy, we're going to flex our muscles and show our power. Now, I'm not saying that the government is wrong in these cases. That's a different argument, a different debate. We should still be obedient to the government because Romans commands us to do that. But it is interesting to see how much control and power the government likes to display when things go crazy. And so when you think about the end times, you think about the book of Revelation, and it's going through those 7 years of all this crazy stuff happening. I can definitely imagine that the governments at that time are going to, really flex their muscles. They're really going to show their power. If they'll do it over a coronavirus, imagine what happens when the rapture comes. And the government's going to say, look, things are going crazy. You're going to have to trust us. We're going to tell you what you can do, where you can go, where you can walk, where you can shop, what you can spend your money on. And we have control of your entire life. That's essentially what's happening now, and to some degree, and that's definitely what's going to happen in the end times when we get to the tribulation years. And so when I look at the coronavirus, I see not the virus so much as a sign, but that the world, the infrastructure, the government systems are preparing themselves for the end times, getting all of these things in place. And so right now the government can say, hey, we don't want you to go to church. And we are obedient to that because, we can still live streaming online, and that's a wonderful blessing. But there may come a time where the government says, hey, you can't go to church physically and you can't watch it online. We're going to block access to that too. And the government may be able to do that. And we're going to be in a tough situation if that happens. But I definitely see all of these reactions of the world and the governments on the state level, our governors, but even on the federal level as well. I see all of these reactions as the birth pangs for the end. Now, the Bible tells us to be ready at all times. We need to be prepared for the Lord to come back at any time. So if you're in Matthew 24, reading the Olivet Discourse, if you just go one page over, just one page over to chapter 25, Jesus talks about this parable of the 10 virgins. And when they have the oil and they're waiting for the master to return, and they, 5 of them were very foolish and they didn't wait up. They fell asleep. They ran out of oil. But then you had the other 5 who were very wise and prudent, and they were ready. And then when that time came, the 5 foolish ones, they realized that they weren't ready. And they asked the other 5, hey, can we have some of your oil? Because we realized that we fell asleep and we weren't ready. And they said, no, it's too late. You're going to have to get your oil elsewhere. And so Jesus tells us this parable right after the Olivet Discourse to tell us, you don't know when it's going to be. You don't know when the end times are coming. You're going to have all of these birth pangs that kind of give you a hint at when the end is coming. But you need to always have this posture, this heart posture, that you're always ready for his return. And so maybe the coronavirus has reset your heart posture. Maybe you are looking at your life, you're looking at your priorities, and maybe you weren't ready for his return. And maybe this event has really jump-started you to examine yourself, examine your walk with the Lord, and to get ready to prepare for his return. And maybe God uses these events just to shake us up, just to get us ready for what's about to happen to this world. So I hope that answers your question. I do think the Bible teaches that pestilences or famines or worldwide events are going to happen, and these are going to be birth pangs before the end. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is the last sign before the end, but it is just another example of the world preparing itself for Christ's return, for judgment to come, and everything is lining up into place. And so I hope that answers your question. There's a lot more research to be done on that if you want to do it on your own, and looking up Bible prophecies and the end times and eschatology points of views and stuff like that. But that for this short video, I hope that this is sufficient, and I hope that you are using this event, this worldwide event. I hope that you are using this event to look at your own priorities in your own life. Are you ready for Christ's return? Are you ready for him to come back? Do you have everything in your house in order for his return? And so that may be the whole point that God is allowing this to happen, is just to get our mind and our faith focused in the right direction. Guys, that's the end of this video. And again, I hope it was helpful. If you have any other questions, please send them to me, and I would love to research them, answer them, and publish a short video. And hopefully that'll be helpful to you and your personal walk with Christ. But until the next video, guys, I hope you have a good one, and I'll see you again very soon.